Everybody, welcome back. Dr. Brent Siebel with you. This is Make It Happen. We are cruising right along and learning so much about how to make an impact, not only within the world, but within our own careers as hopeful innovators and change makers and people that ultimately care about making the world a better place. And one of the ways we can do that is by leveraging innovation. And what you'll hear today is something we love to talk about within Fulton Schools of Engineering and Entrepreneurial Mindset. But it extends far beyond the Fulton Schools of Engineering here at ASU. I think this extends to any academic major or minor or undertaking. If you want to make the world a better place, you have to be very aware of all of these disciplines we offer in the world of technology, in the world of science, in the world of math. And then if you're an artist or if you're a philosopher or a thespian or whatever you are, you can add value to this path forward. So the evolution of tech and the evolution of society is going to require that we all bring our talents to bear. And there's nobody better to talk about this than my friend and colleague, Robin Hammond. She's the director of our Fulton Schools of Engineering Career Center. And she's been working with aspiring change makers for almost her entire career. She's built programs that have literally turned people's lives around. I've witnessed this firsthand. And so Robin has done a great deal of kind of very rigorous work to test interventions and how do we help people become their best selves, or how do we help people really develop this as our friend and colleague John calls it a code to live by. So Robin's got her own code to live by that she's going to share with us here today. So Robin, thanks so much for being here and really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Brent. Brent and I, years ago, we're kind of working on this program together, and it was just an idea that I had. And we were really, as Brent said, really just in a new space that we'd never heard of before, which is how do you bring this entrepreneurial mindset? And at the time we weren't even calling it that, right? But how do you bring these ideas around innovation and making and creating? And then how do you bring value to what you're doing in any setting, whether you're on a project team or in a workplace, or maybe you're in the workplace, you're an alum and you're experienced professional, you're just thinking, how do I stay relevant? How do I stay competitive? How do I keep reinventing myself? So that's my passion and and that's really what I love to do. I've been in career services for over 26 years. I've stayed in this field because no day has ever been like the day before. And it's an incredible opportunity to continue to help people connect their passion with their purpose. That's my why. That's what I do. And realizing that, well, what are people passionate about? Like, what's their why? What's your why, right? And then what do you do with that? How does that actually manifest? How does that translate? How do you actually do things in the world with that? So today, what I'm going to overview is a process that I actually used myself when I got this job as a director of the career services many years ago. And it was my dream job. Like, it was like absolutely what I wanted to do. So I am the founding director of the Fulton Schools of Engineering. There weren't hardly any. I think when we did a benchmark, there were maybe two, three. I think we were like the fourth engineering career center in the country focusing just on engineers. And now there's many more. So we were kind of in new territory. This had never been done. We're trying to figure out, like, how do we make something special and important and relevant and that brings value? So I'm going to share a process that I used to bring value in my job search process, but then also how I've continued to kind of look at that is in terms of how do I bring value to you as students. So there's a couple of frameworks that I'm going to use. One is because all of you are college students and you're either looking for internships or full-time jobs. So I'm going to kind of use that as kind of the backdrop, and we are here talking about careers. So I'm going to use that as a backdrop, but you can, as Brent said, you can apply this to almost any setting and any environment as you're thinking about how do I bring value? What am I being just kind of generally curious about things? What's going on here? What's important? What's important to me? What's important to my community or where I'm working? And then what is that process that we use to really kind of think about, all right, this needs a solution. There's a way to do this, and thankfully, you guys are here at ASU where we're actually teaching you, um, the ways that large companies and organizations, you do their own R&D projects, go after their moonshot projects. So those are some of the things that I'm just going to preview. Those are some opportunities you've already been provided, but we'll continue to provide, even after this semester. I'll kind of just give a quick heads up. If you haven't heard, the ASU is doing an Innovation Quarter. There's a lot of great things going on, and so just a kind of a heads up that everything we're talking about today, you've probably already been doing. If you haven't, there's going to be some really cool opportunities in the next month to apply those. So I'm going to just kind of switch over to really kind of setting a framework here. But my goal is just to kind of set up the ideas here that apply to how to, thinking about internships and jobs, but then how do you thrive in an organization? How do you bring value to your organization? And then most importantly, I'm hoping we're going to have a lot of time for questions. Okay, so I'm going to take over the screen here. One of the first questions I wanted to ask you guys is to really kind of think about how, hold on, I'm going to share my screen here.
While Robin's sharing her screen, I just want to encourage everybody as we transition through Robin's presentation and into the Q&A, feel free to, as always, say hello to everybody in chat. And if you're working on anything cool in the garage or in the basement, well, there's not many basements in Arizona, but regardless of where you are, if you have a lab that you're working on something cool, please do take an opportunity to share that with all of us, because we have a lot of really interesting founders and change agents and inventors that come to our Make It Happen sessions. So thanks, Robin.
Yeah, great. Yeah, thanks, Brent. Okay, so some of the questions that, all right, I'm just working through the technology here. So one of the things I was going to ask Brent, so this is just one of the questions I'm going to tee up here, but really what we're kind of thinking about and bringing entrepreneurial mindset to the workplaces, we're going to talk about some things here: getting, keeping, and advancing on the job, right? So we're all kind of in that role where hopefully we're going after our dream jobs, our dream internships. We kind of face those questions. Hey, tell me about yourself, right? That's in the interview. I mean, it starts even before then, right? We'll go into that, but tell me about yourself, or why should I hire you, right? These are like really kind of tough questions. If you just give a standard answer, you're going to be standard, right? We really want to kind of take it to that next level, really make sure that you're going to take it across the finish line and really get what it is you're looking for. But once you're on the job, there's also many other questions that your supervisor, asks, or that you should be asking about yourself. Like, why should I give you this plum assignment? Why are you lined up for this stretch assignment? Why should I give you a bonus or pay increase? Why should I promote you? Why should you lead this group? Why should I invest in you or your idea? Or why should I trust you? These are just, doesn't even cover it, but as you can kind of get here, there's a common thread here. So we're going to make this parallel, this connection to value creation, because at some point in your career, you're going to be faced with these questions, and they're not going to be maybe that blatant or that direct, but ultimately you're creating a value proposition statement about yourself, and you're showing evidence so that you have data and information, not only just to show, hey, I can do this, but this is why I'm, number one or the best person who to do this job. Okay, so this is my cue to take me over to the next screen. So I'm going to just do a new share here. And what you should be seeing, so Brent, help me out. This should be a good view of the what makes a Fulton engineer.
Yep.
Okay. So what we're looking at here is, oops, apologies. Hold on, got to redo this again. All right. Okay, so what we're looking here at is, a lot of how Brent and many others who work in this space are really thinking about what's the value that we bring to students? What's the value of the ASU degree? What's the value of a Fulton degree, right? And so, as whether you're in engineering or in business or in art, a lot of our schools have, accreditation standards, right? That's what's on the right-hand side here. In engineering, it's ABET, right? And there are certain skills and competencies that all graduates will have when you finish your degree. What we're thinking about is, how do we bring value to that? How do we translate? So a lot of the work that I do is translating a lot of the experiences that you have at ASU, such as Changemaker Central, like Innovation Quarter that we're talking about, Devil's Invent, hackathons, all kinds of opportunities, right? It's more than just going through those, but there has to be you have to kind of dig into them to really be reflective and dig out the value of it in a way that's relevant to your audience, right? So that's a little bit of, what this is kind of helping to do, in my view, from the career standpoint, is to really kind of think about, then on the right-hand side, we've really thought about what are the Fulton School's entrepreneurial mindset. And you can actually, if you're participating in these programs, you're going to see a lot of other similarities in other degree programs. But we've just done this mapping mostly to our ABET accredited program. So just as a quick kind of, we won't be able to go through every single aspect of this, but I just want to call your attention to a few things. And I'm sure, Brent, somehow we can make this available. I think we already have this up on our website. So, there's certainly ways that you can get this information, but I'm just going to kind of call a few things out here. So for example, right, what I tell students about what you're trying to do as an engineer is, you're always in any discipline, that discipline provides you the skills and abilities to solve problems in a very particular way, right? In any organization you're in, you're there to solve problems. And it's either very complex or very narrow or very niched based on your skills and background. But ultimately, that's what you're there to do. And that's certainly kind of the foundational aspects of thinking about, what your field is, what your degree is. Well, we just certainly do that all the time in engineering. We actually give you some very specific tools and methods to do that. But every discipline. So I'm a journalist, journalism major by trade. I graduated from Walter Cronkite School of Journalism. Absolutely. We absolutely did this all the time, is looking at what is the problem here that we're trying to solve, right? And identifying that, formulating, we maybe weren't in the role of executing and solving certain problems, but maybe our role was to kind of communicate and bring light to that. So one of the things, so again, you can think about this in a lot of different contexts. But what we're looking at here, then if you go to the, just call your attention over to the left side of the screen. If you look at applying the entrepreneurial mindset, right, you're really looking at observing your surroundings, recognizing opportunity. Right? All of you guys are here because you recognize an opportunity through this program, through the Brent's announcements, right? You recognize, hey, there's an opportunity to learn something here, right? And when you're looking in terms of problem sets, you're looking at multiple solution paths, right? Everybody wants to jump to a solution pretty fast, but if you haven't really engaged deeply in understanding that problem, you might actually miss out on an even better solution, right? And so this is really key, and this is hard. And I think I'll, just a couple more that I'll point out that we really focus on is gather data to support and refute ideas, right? You hear that all the time. Observe trends with future-focused perspectives. Suspend initial judgment on new ideas, right? So everybody wants to jump to a quick solution, but really where you kind of start to edge out is when you stick with that problem and go deeper and go deeper and go deeper, really doing that discovery. And of course, we talk a lot about that customer discovery, like really going and asking the people who are on the front line, help me understand from your perspective, or what are your pain points? And as Brent talks about it, what bugs you? What is it that gives you a headache, or what bugs you? And if you could change things, what would it look like? How would it improve? Just learning how to ask those really good questions are just so critical in any part of this problem solving process. So these are, just so there's certainly a huge, just a wonderful and very in-depth model here, but just my goal here, so that we can have a conversation, I'm already getting close to my time here, is that I just want to fly over a couple of concepts here so that we can kind of then go into really applying it to ways that are important to you, so that this is actually relevant to you. So main ideas here that we're kind of going through is that we are, you know, as we're looking at what the, you know, understanding there's a problem, really doing customer discovery, getting data, getting feedback, and then how do you, when you're developing a product, how are you engaging the customer in that process? How are you iterating? How are you modifying? And how are you looking at the value proposition of a discovery? You're really looking at, okay, well, this is a solution, but is this really bringing value? Is this really what customers are looking for? We had Microsoft devices come, and they make the Xbox, right? And one of the ASU sponsor for one of the lead engineers said, you know, customers really don't always know what they want. It's like that's the hardest thing in the world, to really get, customers will tell you what they think they want, but to really get to understanding really what customers want is a really complex and deep process. So, you know, just to kind of lay out that this isn't just kind of there's lots of ways to go about it, but what the challenge here is, and where I'll apply this, is kind of go deeper, right? So there's, and really sitting with those in that moment of customer discovery, because that's where your insights and innovations and ahas will come. And more importantly, you know, as you're looking at the teams and groups that you're working with, the more diverse those teams are, the more diverse those perspectives are, the better those innovations and solutions are. So, and that's why here you'll also see, you know, there's important to have diverse audiences, different perspectives, and not to close down those ideas early. So this framework, kind of come back to this other presentation here, but this framework is really what, you know, kind of is driving this next section that I wanted to go over with you. And that is, you know, how we think about it in terms of our careers, and what we're going to do to really help think about you bringing value to your either job search or internship, or even when you get the job, how are you going to be successful there? So okay, so I just wanted to check my share really quick before I start jumping in. You should be seeing a 3Cs slide. Can everyone see the 3Cs slide now?
Looks great.
Okay, so if you haven't seen this yet, go ahead.
Actually, sorry, Robin. It looks like we might be in speaker view. So we're seeing two slides. We're seeing.
Okay, so let me do new share.
Although Mariella is excited because she knows what you're going to say next.
Maybe I should turn it over to Mariella. So yeah. Okay, let's see. Screen 2. All right. All right. How are we on the on the screen now?
Looks good.
Okay, perfect. All right. So flying over this quickly, but as we know, kind of the important elements here as we talk about entrepreneurial mindset are 3 series, right? This is so critical in everything, and this and it's particularly critical as we're thinking about you as the product here, and how you continue to both engage in the marketplace to get what you want, but then also to if you will, kind of grow and mature. You know, curiosity, connections, creating value, just so essential, you know, in terms of the framework, and it definitely applies here. So we're going to use this opportunity framework on the left and we're going to apply that really quick to a job search. So I co-opted this presentation from my staff who I shared is applying entrepreneurial mindset, and they're actually going to give the depth this presentation in great detail at during Innovation Quarter. So I'm not going to steal their thunder. I'm just going to kind of fly through a few more slides here. But what I really wanted to talk about, you know, as we're thinking about this framework for entrepreneurial mindset and what we're trying to accomplish to bring value, I want to narrow it all the way down to kind of thinking now about like either that job search and then getting the job, and how you can apply entrepreneurial mindset to do that, and some tools. Right. So this is the framework we're looking at, and we'll go through the steps here in just a second. So the first part is like identify, right? You're going to identify what it is, what do you want, right? And you are the product, right? So what do you want? And of course, if this is all part of research, and you're going to understand something about different industries, organizations, culture, right? There's a lot of research that goes into this, and then when you're doing your research, you're going to find out a lot about what they say is important in their organization as well. So as you're going out there and looking and identifying what you want, you're this next step of investigating the market, like this is now where you're starting to say, okay, I know the ballpark that I'm in, but now I really need to know who are the key players here. Who has the type of culture, the type of environment where I can grow, where my ideas can be applied. And what's really interesting here is as you do this investigation, you might be surprised because every company right now is going through some level of transformation. Every company is always transforming, but many of them are going through these massive disruptions, and they're really hungry. I mean, just looking for people who really understand this process of what we're talking about here. How do you bring value to an organization? So if you apply this in your own job search, that's the first example, and then you can start to apply it as you then go into a work environment. So you're really looking at the market, and we have some tools here on how you can do that. ASU all the time has employers on campus. I think last year we looked at our events, and there was like 877 opportunities to meet with companies and organizations. So there's no shortage of opportunities of where you can investigate. But what I want to share is my own story of how I use this process, because one is that it works. I've worked with many of other students on this process where they got their absolute dream job because they applied entrepreneurial mindset to their job search, and they were able to really stand out, really create a business case, if you will, for why they are, the candidate of choice. And then more importantly, they actually kind of helped the employer envision them, the student, as like a future, like a first day employee, right? So as the students, they took on this first day employee mindset, which kind of is as another way that they've incorporated all of these ideas to really make that difference. So I'm going to walk through an example of how this happens. Okay, so I shared that I use this is actually this is literally a file that I made in 2007. So what you're seeing is actual information there. I just kind of put it over on a slide here. But as we're identifying the opportunity, you had to start with research, right? So working in Fulton Schools of Engineering was something that I really wanted to do. It was my dream job. And based on the job description, I just pulled out like, okay, here's what they want. Here's what they're looking for. This is the need. Okay, so as you guys can all imagine, if you're as a student, you're thinking, yeah, I'd like to have internship opportunities. I want to make sure I have good resources. I want people I can talk to that are experienced and know, and I want to be able to talk to employers. And then my boss wants to know, are you guys doing a good job? Are you creating new opportunities? Are you managing budgets well? Lots of other things. So there's a lot in here. So once, I kind of did my research, then you start to create your own products, right? So why you, right? And so there's different ways you do that. I'm telling everybody, yeah, we talk about a resume right now, but really it's LinkedIn, it's your GitHub accounts, it's your profiles, social media profiles. Like that is really where most of the job opportunities are in the future. But you certainly want to make sure and understand where are these opportunities happening. So as you're creating your product, if you will, and in this case, it's a resume or a profile, you've already done your research. You understand what the marketplace is looking for. And then you evaluate, right? What's the feasibility of this? Does my customer value what I'm providing? Are they seeing, am I getting hits on my resume? Meaning, are they seeing that I might bring benefit to their organization? Am I getting the interviews and what's happening in those interviews? So in this case, we're kind of making the analogy here of where we allow, of where you can get feedback, right? So, and where you can continue to get information. But we have lots of ideas and places where, and we have a lot of technical managers that we bring to campus. Great place to just talk and test your test out your ideas, and even we talk about your pitch, right? What's your pitch, so that you can get feedback and evaluate what's happening in with your tools and your products, right? As you're evaluating the opportunity, as you're evaluating what's the best approach and process. As you're doing this, then you're applying your tools, right? You're testing it out in the marketplace. In this case, it's the job search, right? So key, again, you're creating a plan, right? You've got the tools. What are the places that where I do this? Where do I look? We know networking is a big part of it. There's some really specific strategies on how to network, especially on LinkedIn. When people know your work and know your product, like that is, I think, the biggest, differentiator. So going out and meeting lots of people and having a strategy for how to do that, if you don't already have this, as you're building your network, as you're building your connections. So again, you're thinking about your strategy. You're gonna test your strategies and you start applying. So back to kind of this process and what I did next was my resume worked, right? Because I had already identified what their needs were and I had direct experience related to that. So I got the interview, and I wrote down right afterwards. I just, again, this is actuals. I didn't do any editing here. Just what were the questions that they asked me? Because that kind of gave me a sense of what they were looking for, what their needs were. And once I looked at what the questions were that they were asking me, right? They wanted to understand both my administrative skills, how I run my business, how am I going to evaluate success, right? Then I wrote those down, and so we're now to the next step of assess, right? In that framework, and in that framework of assessing, we're looking at, okay, is this working? Are there iterations that I need to make? What adjustments do I need to make? What did I learn so far in this process? And so when if you're not getting maybe callbacks on your resume, or if you're not getting the interview, and then even in the interview, if you're not getting the job, right, there's all these iterations that we have to make to find out what's not working in the marketplace and make those adjustments. This is where you really have to kind of, I think, pull back to the 3 C's, right? In this case, we're looking at like, okay, what's happening? What did I demonstrate enough of these? Where might there be some barriers or failings, or I'm just not, we want to fail forward fast because we don't want this to be a long job search. We want to understand quickly what might not be working, and really trying to understand how we can make some pivots. So curiosity, what's going on? Connections. And what else is going on? What have I learned? So in connections of ideas, right? So based on what I've learned from the marketplace, if you've been going through maybe the job search, or maybe you've gone through an interview, can you connect some ideas? Can you see some things happening? Do you need more information? What are you, what is the process telling you about where we might need to either make some pivots or do some iterations? And then leading that down to, okay, now that we've kind of asked more questions, let's look at creating value, right? Is there enough value in the product? If not, how do you increase the value, right? In some cases, it's like, okay, maybe I need to go after, maybe just need to sharpen up some of my foundational knowledge, or maybe I need to try a couple of projects and take on some projects and really focus on describing how I've been successful in those projects. Maybe I need to like learn a new skill and seek a certification. So there's so many great era right now where we've got so many online, most massive open online courses, and so many certification pathways that there's, in every field, there's different kinds of areas where people just need to know, what do you know? And how can you apply those successfully? So that in another way is like, and how can you apply that to my problems? How can you apply that in my environment? And how do I know that those skills are strong enough to really help us move the needle forward? So you're always just thinking about where can I create value? What are the needs? What do I need to do as a, in terms of being, if you will, that product, quote unquote, where do I need to maybe up my value? Okay, so back to how I did this with an employment value report is after I kind of did my research and I reflected on the interviews, and I, of course, continued to research everything going on about the Fulton Schools of Engineering, I had just an ideas for a business plan. Again, this is exactly what I wrote in 2007. So I started to put ideas together because I had known some things about their customers that they didn't know about themselves. Like I had this really profound story of a student who had this co-op opportunity in with IBM in Tucson. And it was such an important opportunity, such a profound opportunity that she had a $16,000 scholarship that she wasn't able to defer it. She just had to forego it because this co-op opportunity was so amazing. This work opportunity was in her dream job and the role she wanted. And if she did it, she was almost guaranteed a job afterwards. And that was kind of a really profound story about one of the customers of the school at the time. Is like, students shouldn't be in that position to have to make that choice. We really need to find better solutions and better options. So I had, I really understood the customers well, that, and I had some of these stories and really kind of brought to their awareness maybe some things that they didn't even know, right? So at the time, again, this is still an era where there weren't a lot of any models out there, but the model was really based on what did people need? What were their pain points? So this is what I did. And this is a one pager, and I'm going to wrap it up here very quickly, is that this is a one pager. This is exactly what I wrote. It starts here where it says an employment value report. And what I did is, where this came about was after I had completed my final interview, because I'd gone through a few rounds of interviews and it was very competitive. And I knew the person who I was competing against, and he had tons more experience than I did. He had a lot of he had a very forceful personality. And people are like, man, there's no way. Like, you should just give up now. I'm like, no, this is my dream. This is what I want. And I didn't even focus on him. I just focused on like, what can I do to really like make things better for students. And I had those stories and I knew what I wanted to do. So I really understood the need, and I just said, here's the need, right? What they needed was industry members had come to the dean and said, we need to be able to recruit engineering students, and we need you to figure out a solution. So I knew what the need was. And I had a vision, right? I wanted to really just create this excellent opportunity for students. And then what did I have? What experience did I really needed to call out that helped to fill that need? And so I just kind of pulled relevant things from my own background just to kind of restate what it was that I had experience in that I could bring to the table. And then I looked at what are going to be some key drivers or key enablers that will help to fulfill this vision, right? And basically, it was kind of letting them know that I had a how I saw the vision being able to come into full fruition, right? And so these were some of the key elements that I needed. So this is just a kind of a high level overview. And again, it was a one pager, but you could kind of extract from it. There's somebody who's thinking like a first day employee. She's just as passionate as about our students and as we are. She knows what the marketplace is and what the needs are, and the products or the solutions she's offering. This is totally on point of what they were looking for, and so I got the job. And of course, I've been in that dream job now for about 16 plus years, but it doesn't stop, because then, how do you go to the next level? How do you keep staying relevant? How do you keep continuing to evolve and grow and thrive? So entrepreneurial mindset on the job to thrive, just some key points. First, seek out mentors. You've got to have mentors, people who know all the unwritten rules, who can guide you, maybe help you not make some of the mistakes they made, be your advocates, be your sponsors. But everybody needs, especially in that first year in that of your job, you definitely need it. But certainly having them throughout your career is critical to master your job. You got to know your stuff and apply it. You guys have to be solid. Be curious, right? So be cautious of what's going on in your work environment. Like, what are the bugs? What are the problems? What are the processes that you touch, like that you're involved in. Discover all the issues related to it. And then you apply your entrepreneurial mindset. Like everything we've been talking about, you've applied it in your job search. Now you want to apply it on your first year on the job or your first few years on the job, and it doesn't stop. It just keeps going every year. But as you're going into that first job, you're paying attention. You're keeping a notebook or a journal, right? You're collecting as you continue to ideate. You're gathering information. You're observing. You're seeing what the needs are. And then as we've talked about, there's this process here, but at some point it's like, hey, all right, I need to present, I want to demonstrate that I can bring value and present a solution. And you create, you need to think about how you're going to create that effectively and show where you can, help to solve this problem. The other part is you're always documenting, right? You're documenting your own contribution and metrics because you are still your own product. And there's a lot of movement today where the old performance evaluations are kind of by the wayside. Everybody's looking at new ways to help retain and motivate and reward employees. You got to be your own best advocate. And so again, as you're kind of you're collecting data and information, right? You're documenting your own contribution and metrics so that you can present data and information about those questions we started with. Why should I hire you? Or why should I promote you? Or why should I give you this plum opportunity? Why should you lead this team? You've got lots of examples and data to show because you're constantly scanning what the needs are. You're making notes, you're observing, you're being curious, you're seeing maybe ideas where they can connect across the board. And you're always thinking, and what you're doing is that's why it's a mindset. You're creating value. So as you're kind of communicating, obviously you're going to communicate these ideas appropriately. You're also developing a brand and a reputation. That's the mindset part we were talking about, right? Is that you're constantly, that's just who you are. That's part of your DNA. And as a universal learner, right, especially as engineers, technical professionals, creatives, you're always going to be reskilling and upskilling. It's just a fact of life. And that's what we do. So last bit here is I want to put a plug for ASU Innovation Quarter. We're going to have lots of opportunities to continue learning and applying these ideas. But I hope that today in this process, as students, you can think about how, you can bring value creation to the job market and stand out. How you can really help the employer see you as adopt a first day employee mindset so they can see you as the employee that they really want to have on their team, and it'll help you stand out. So, it's not about how pretty your resume is, it's about what you can do, what you've achieved, and what you can bring to that organization. And that's what your ASU degree actually prepares you to do. And I tell you all the time, I'm meeting with employers every day who want to meet you as students and to really understand how you can help their organizations continue to grow, transform, and really be those innovators of the future. So that, I'm going to wrap it up. Brent, thanks so much. I really had a lot of fun being able to kind of share my own story, but hopefully I've encouraged some of you to think a little bit differently about how you present yourself, not only as future employees, but then, as future leaders, making a difference out in the world.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Robin. It looks like we might have lost your video feed because we saw your slides perfectly, but I'd love to see your smiling face before we wrap.
Okay.
Are you still there?
I'm still here.
Gabe, are you able to see her video or is it just me?
No, I cannot either.
Oh, okay. Oh, there she is.
Are we back on? Okay.
Yes, we came back into virtual world. We only lost a few pixels along the way. So thanks, Thanks, Gabe, for helping out there. Robin, really appreciate it. Great talk. I mean, I'm just so proud, to be a part of this journey with you of instilling an entrepreneurial mindset across all of our students, especially within engineering. But yeah, just to hear it be applied to your own journey as a what I would describe as an entrepreneur here at ASU is even more powerful. So I think it's a great challenge to encourage everybody here to write their own story using these tactics and these strategies and these skills, obviously, but also more importantly, the mindset. So thanks, Robin. tremendous. Can't wait to share this with all of our colleagues and faculty so they know they're not alone in preaching some of these best practices. So
Thanks for the opportunity.
that we're going to sign off, but then we're going to have a great Q&A session. So please do stick around.